So I was alone with my laptop, and I'm ashamed to admit that I was watching guitar videos on YouTube. I watched Paul David's 10 Awesome Riffs video, and it got me thinking, what are 10 songs that taught me how to play bass? So here they are, from super easy to ow, my hands are burning! You know that feeling the first time you picked up a bass and your hands are just like,
no.
We've all been there, and that's how I was feeling at age 13 when my dad showed me this, my first song on bass ever. It was only a few notes, but getting to the right one at the right time was still really challenging. And I was probably plucking the wrong string half the time, you know, like you do when you're starting out on bass. But I didn't care. It was really exciting because I was playing bass. These notes aren't very fast, so at this point I didn't need much plucking speed. And if you're just starting out, beginner songs like this with minimal plucking are great because you can focus on building your basic coordination without getting overwhelmed. That all changed for me when I learned my second song, which was maybe not a great choice because it was way, way faster. Keeping up with those plucks was like so impossibly hard when I first tried this, but I really loved the Ramones, so I took it as a challenge, which meant I had to work on my alternating plucking a lot, just starting really, really slow, and then gradually working it up with a metronome. And yes, this song is supposed to be played with a pick, but I just learned everything with my fingers back then, which I think was good for my growth, even if it wasn't the right tone for this song. The next song, number 3, wasn't as fast, but it taught me some more complex rhythms that I hadn't dealt with before. This song wasn't a huge challenge, but it was good for me to get used to playing those offbeat rhythms because I would need that skill when we get to the funky songs later down the list. But also, Cliff Williams doesn't come in with the bass until right before the chorus, which gives the song an exciting energy boost. So I learned that sometimes being a good bass player means knowing when to shut up. I learned those 3 songs all in my first couple months of bass playing, but it's all stuff I could have learned even faster if I traveled into the future and taken my own beginner to badass course.
I need your bass, your amp, and your bass buzz lessons.
Song number 4 brings us to the next step in my journey, which was playing in a Motown and soul cover band with my mom. This one taught me some funk fundamentals. Fundamentals? The classic, the very overplayed. Now, of course, if you're a Headhunters nerd, you know that this isn't even really the bass line. Paul Jackson was actually playing this. And this is a synth part. But if you're playing this in a band and the keyboard player is not covering that part, then it is the bass line. This might have been the first line I ever learned with this great walkup pattern, where instead of just hitting your root note, you start 3 frets below and walk up. And you can find more easy patterns like that in my walkups video. But this pattern is so killer for us bass players. You can use it for funk, you can use it for disco, you can use it for gospel, and of course for slapping. Can't let you leave without liking and subscribing, son.
Do it.
Alright, we need to change basses for song number 5. Alright, that's better. This is another one from those early days in that cover band that showed me a more melodic side of bass playing, and it's still one of my favorite soul bass lines. This was one of my first encounters with this classic soul fill shape. We call that the major triangle in my Killer Bass Fills video. And we've also got this super yummy bass solo in this tune. which was really great shifting practice for me when I first learned it. And also there's so many nice long notes in the solo, which I love because us bass players tend to play way too staccato. Just fine sometimes, but if you get some long notes in there, it sounds nice and melodic, more like a singer. Speaking of killer melodic playing, our next bass line, number 6, still totally blows me away. Regrettably, I don't have a Hofner around, so we're just faking this on the P bass. But isn't this an incredible bass line? It's one of Paul's coolest bass lines ever, which is really saying something. This one taught me a lot about how to play with a singer, which is a skill every bass player needs to be really good at. Paul's line is pretty juicy throughout, but he's most active here when the voice is resting, which creates a cool call and response effect. I can't play the original track for you without getting copyright blocked, so listen to it on your own after this video and check out how the bass and voice interact. I even made you a Spotify playlist with all the songs from this video, plus even more songs that taught me bass, and the link is in the description. Alright, let's go back to the J bass. Ta-da! So as I learned harder and harder songs and I kept improving my technique, I actually started having a new problem with my playing, which afflicts many intermediate bass players. I'll explain what I mean more after you hear this, but this next song, number 7, helped me to tame this new issue and make some slightly more mature choices for my bass lines. After learning songs like Something and I'll Take You There, I developed a taste for this active melodic bass playing, but in my teenage foolishness that often degenerated into extreme overplaying. So this bass line taught me another way to play melodically without overplaying by using repetition. So the first 2 beats of each bar are actually the same every time. It's the same rhythm, boo boo ditto, and the same note relationships, even when there's a chord change, doo doo ditto. And then the last 2 beats of each bar have some changing notes, but the rhythm still stays the same every time. The 3 and 4, the 8th quarter. And bars 1 and 3 even have the same notes there. So Nikolai's bass line supports the song with a cool counter melody, but it doesn't sound like a big distracting bass solo because of this repetitive structure. But bass playing isn't all about lovely melodies. Sometimes you just have to lay down the funk. So song number 8 is from my early days of playing in funk jams around Sonoma County, California, where I grew up. And if you've ever been to funk jams, you've definitely heard this tune, maybe too many times. It took me some practice to nail that swung 16th note feel. So in this song, instead of the 16ths going evenly like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a, they're a little bit lumpy like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. Here's what the song would sound like if they were straight 16ths. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a. So it feels really different, right? It's not bad, it's just different, a little more robotic. But if we swing those 16ths, you get a little bit more grease on it. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a. So I was learning a ton about rhythm and creating engaging bass lines, but I was also becoming a huge bass nerd and working on my technique, getting faster and more efficient. So song number 9 takes us back to the hard rock department for another major plucking challenge. I'd been playing bass for a few years already when I first tried learning this, so keeping up with the speed wasn't that hard. What really challenged me was the endurance element of keeping those 16ths powering forward for like 5 minutes straight. So besides just training my muscles up with repetition, this song also forced me to focus more on my breathing, because when we're playing fast for a long time, we tend to start holding our breath, but You can actually play longer and faster if you can keep those inhales and exhales flowing. The last song on my list, number 10, also had a huge impact on my technique, and again, we need to change basses. Ta-da! So I used to come home from school and play along with this album just straight through, but this song stands out the most to me. This one was hard. It's a similar speed and endurance challenge to Stockholm Syndrome, but in a way even harder to pluck because of all the triplets, which makes the string crossing harder, and there's faster note changes. Plus there's like 10 or 11 different riff changes through the song. It's just nuts. And just to close this out, here's the last thing I was working on recently, which is even more nuts.